What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to go over R5 or the Rift Raid. We're going to talk about what units you could use, which ones to build, how to build them, and why to build them, like why to build these specific units. So before we go into the unit building and which units to use, first we're going to take a look at the strategy info because this is going to influence why we're going to build certain units. Okay, so first a keynote here will be the summoners will share leader skills. So you do want to bring something to the table besides just your team. You want to bring in a leader skill because that leader skill is going to help other players benefit from obviously the leader skill, and then also being able to reduce the rune quality necessary to actually compete in R5. Okay, so we're going to look at some units with good leader skills, prioritizing probably like defense percent, crit rate, and resistance. Resistance is going to be a big one in R5. Okay, and then we're also going to, just go through the skills real quick, because this is going to determine where you're going to place certain units in the raid, and then also which units you're going to build for the raid by itself. So Crush of Doom. This, or actually we'll start up with Breath of Doom. So Breath of Doom is going to attack all enemies, which is going to be your team, and decrease the attack power and attack speed for 2 turns. Also going to put you in the Oblivion state. If you don't know what the Oblivion state is, it actually negates your passive. So units like Diaz and Darien, so Diaz being the Dark Death Knight and then Darien being the Light Vagabond, you actually, that passive gets negated, so it won't take into effect. So that damage reduction that those 2 units do is not going to work for the 2 turns that they're in the Oblivion state, and that goes for anything with a passive. So if you have Perna, and Perna dies, but it's in Oblivion state, then it's actually not going to come back to life because that's part of his passive. So you just have to take that kind of stuff into account, and then why I'm going to recommend specific units in the future of this video, so that you don't get caught up in bringing in the wrong units, or why we have to build a certain way. In order to mitigate, like Breath of Doom, you're going to want to have high resistance built on your units so that they don't get put into that Oblivion state. Alright. So Crush of Doom, which is next. This one's going to target specifically your frontline units. It ignores all beneficial effects, and then the damage increases substantially as the target's defense decreases. So the lower your defense is for your frontline units, the more damage they're going to take from this specific attack. So if you only have like plus 300, plus 400 defense on there, on your units, then yeah, this is most likely going to kill your frontline. So a good rule of thumb is to have a total of 1,500 defense on your unit. And then I'll go into the builds on specific units after we're done doing, like looking at all these skills, right? The boss skills. But I think like a good unit like Chasarion, which is the Wind Sky Dancer, has around like 700 base defense. So you want to get like plus 800 defense within your runes in order to get her to 1,500 defense. That's kind of like the baseline defense to make sure that your units don't die, and that's like the threshold to take the minimum amount of damage from the Crush of Doom. Alright, because once your frontline dies, then this skill will be used on the backline, and your backline is usually going to be like your damage dealers and your healers, in order to like deal damage to the boss, obviously. Alright, next we have the Rageful Roar. So this is going to remove all beneficial effects, and it attacks all enemies. Alright, and then it will automatically activate when enraged 16 times. So the enraged 16 times means that every time one of your units takes a turn, then it stacks up 1 enrage. So once your team takes a total of 16 turns, then this will automatically activate, and then it's going to use Rageful Roar. So it's going to remove all beneficial effects, and then it's going to recover HP proportionate to the number of beneficial effects removed. So if you take in something like Fran, which is going to have attack buff and immunity, it's going to remove that off of all of the units, and then it's going to recover HP based on how many beneficial effects it removed. So it could be you have 6 units on your team, each of them having 12 buffs on them. It's going to remove all 12 and then heal based on those 12 buffs. And then it'll also stun the enemies and then increase the boss's attack power. So a good way to actually mitigate against this is to have an HP recovery effect, the HP reduction, or block HP recovery, I think that's what it's technically called, to have that on the boss. So anytime it uses a skill, then the boss won't have HP recovery. Alright, then another one, Total Annihilation. That's just when he jumps in the air and then comes down. Just a big hit, deals a lot of damage, and then also removes all the debuffs off of the boss, and it's pretty much just like the second iteration of fighting the boss. Carnage, if the raid boss like kills a team, then it's going to automatically focus on the next team, and its attack speed just gets faster and faster. Alright. Destroyer's Revenge. Yeah, so the damage of the next attack will increase in proportion to the number of the enemy turns. Yeah, so you'll see this stack when we're actually going through the raid. Over time, you'll just see that going up to like that 15, 16 mark. I think that's like the enrage effect. Alright. And then the Ruler of Chaos is just saying that the 3 heads will share their attack bar in the beginning, and then each head will have its own attack bar. And then you can manipulate it with like Hua or anything that just like pushes or the attack bar or does anything like with attack bar reduction. And then also an important one is that damage based on the enemy HP is negated here. It doesn't take effect. So things like Sigmaris and Spectra and Shaman that deal big damage on their skill 2s based on the enemy's max HP does not take effect here during the raid. So it's highly suggested to not bring those units specifically to R5. Alright, so now we're going to get into it. I'm just going to show my team here and just explain why I'm going through, or explain why I use these specific units. So the majority of people know the BJ5 team. I'll make another video specifically on the build for the BJ5 team. This is that high damage team where you're able to clear R5 in like 27 seconds, but you need 2 other people to also have this specific team. And yeah, so if you're not ready for a BJ5 team, then I recommend something more of my middle team. So first we're going to be Darien. So I know I said Darien, you don't want him to be in the Oblivion state, right? So that's why we have him on 78% resistance. You want to have 100% resistance, but you're going to bring in a leader skill that provides that resistance, okay? Currently I don't have a leader skill up here that provides resistance, but I have more of like a speed comp for my solo R5. Good resistance leads are going to be, one way you could actually check all this is go into your monster pool, go to collection, and then you're going to go to search up here at the top, okay? Monster type, doesn't matter, you could put whatever, just put all in there. So leader skill, you're going to want to do anything that just has, you don't want anything like specific to dungeons or anything like that. But then you're going to go to this next one, and then you're going to look at resistance right here. You're going to look at, and then you're going to click search. So you're going to look at all monsters that have a resistance leader skill. And then you'll just have to base it off of, is it specifically for guilds, or is it specifically for arena, or could I use it anywhere, right? Dungeon content. So Chasarion, excuse me, the Fire Ifrit. He has a 41% resistance leader skill, and that gets applied to the entire raid. So, which is really helpful for ruining up your units, so then you don't have to put them at that 70+% resistance. He mitigates that to where you only have to ruin 59% resistance on your units. Then you can focus the rest of the stats on anything else, like HP, defense, or I don't know, whatever you want to put it on, right? So he just helps mitigate that that rune requirement, and then provides that resistance. And like I said, resistance is really important, so then you can resist the Oblivion state, and then also like the attack power debuff, and then the stuns that the boss does as well. So Chasarion would be a good leader skill, and he also provides being a damage dealer for the raid, with his skill 2 being able to provide that defense break. There's other units that you can bring in besides Chasarion that I would recommend prior to Chasarion as a damage dealer, but we'll go into which damage dealers I recommend in tanks and healers and cleansers and stuff like that. We'll go into that. I just wanted to show you how to search for units if you're looking for a specific leader skill and you're lacking the monster pool in order to like do R5. All right, so we are going to go into first, let's actually go for tanks. Before I go into tanks specifically, I will say that there are going to be probably 4 categories of units that you should bring into R5. One's going to be a tank, the next going to be damage dealer, and then after that's going to be cleanser, and then a healer. So you're going to have tank, damage dealer, cleanser, and healer. So all of them are going to fit into these specific roles. All right. So a tank is just somebody that's going to support the rest of the team based off of just their overall tankiness and being able to just be on the front line and get punched in the face. So good tanks are going to be something like Darien. He doesn't really require that much speed or crit rate, crit damage. He's not there to actually deal any damage. He's just there to support the rest of the team and just be in that front line and just get punched in the face by the boss. That's pretty much his sole job, his sole purpose. But he's also just really good because with his skill 1, you can see that he has a chance to reduce the enemy's defense. So a defense break, a lot of debuffs are actually really good in R5. So you want to be able to provide the debuff for the defense break. You want to do attack break, heal block, branding effect, glancing hit, everything. You would just want to put it all on the boss, right? So he provides a defense break with skill 1, and then he provides the attack break with skill 2. So that's 2 debuffs that one monster provides. And then his passive, decrease the damage that your allies take by 20%. That doesn't affect himself, but that does affect the rest of the team. So they take 20% less damage. So that's going to really drop your rune requirement for the rest of your team to build the tankiness in order to survive, I don't know, pretty much just all the attacks by the raid boss, right? But this is a passive, so that's why I said you're going to need him on high resistance because you want to avoid that Oblivion state. But it's just really nice. Darien's just really easy, simple to build. I have mine on HP, defense, and defense. The reason why I have defense, like I said before, he's going to be in the front line, and you want him around that 1,500 defense. So that's why I have my defense around 1,500. A little bit more than that, right? And then your HP, you want it to be like around plus, you want to have roughly like 23,000 to 28,000 HP in total. And I just have a little bit extra than that, right? So I have about 33,000, but it's okay to have like around 25,000 total HP. And then, yeah, Darien doesn't need speed, so you don't have to look for speed on your runes. You can just put high defense, high HP, like we have here, high defense and high HP, and then you just want some of that resistance too. So Darien is a good unit. Another really good unit that's another free-to-play would actually be the Fire Panda. Fire Panda is fantastic. I actually don't have him built on my account because I just don't really like taking the time to fuse things. But yeah, off of his skill 1, hits 3 times, and then also provides that defense break. Really beneficial for the team. He removes all harmful effects, so he's actually, after a buff, I think like a few seasons ago, he actually can cleanse your entire team, which is phenomenal. He used to not actually do this, but yeah, provides that HP recovery, and then yeah, cleanses your team. Is that correct? Maybe that's an awakened skill. Let me check him in the collection box. Maybe that he awakens into that, because I think I was reading that incorrectly. Let's see here. So after awaken, okay, yeah, so that does get buffed. So you do have to awaken him. So remove the harmful effects granted on all allies, and then recovers their HP each turn for 2 turns. But that recover HP percent is a buff, and then when the boss does a Rageful Roar, removing all the buffs, it will heal itself. So which is where the Fire Panda skill 3 comes in, where attack power decrease, attack speed decrease, the glancing hit, and HP recovery, disturb HP recovery. That's a huge one that you're going to need for raid, especially if you're just doing a basic team. That HP recovery is going to hit you really hard if you don't provide that debuff on the boss. So, but Fire Panda does it all, right? The defense break, attack speed decrease, glancing hit, and HP recovery disturb. Huge. These are huge debuffs, and then this is a free-to-play unit that you could fuse. You could provide the skill ups to them by fusing more skill ups, or I mean, if you want to double them on them, you can, but not necessary. And then he also provides that increased defense by 33%. So he has a defense percent leader skill. So this is almost like the top tier, build this unit as your tank, because he provides everything for you. He provides the debuffs, he's really tanky, he has really crazy good base stats for raid. He doesn't need to be that fast, I would say maybe like plus 60 speed. But yeah, he's going to be able to help be a cleanser, provide all the debuffs for you, provide that HP disturb, do a defense break, and then also provide that defense lead. Defense lead just makes the rune requirements a lot less, So then you could have not great runes, but still be able to participate in R5. And then, yeah, you're just sharing that leader skill with everybody else too, trying to get to that 1,500 defense for your front line. So I highly recommend building this on your account, right? So now that's Zhang Fei, the Fire Panda, and then also Darien. Another one, if you're lucky enough to be playing during this time, you could also go the Dark Death Knight, or if you happen to summon it, right? So this is pretty much the same thing like Darien. Decrease the chance of getting a critical hit, but the big one is reduce the damage that other allies take by 15%. That's just really helpful just for your entire team. Darien does 20%, but then DS does 15%, but then he also reduces the chance of receiving a critical hit, so that's definitely not bad. His skill 2, attack power break, and a defense break. So really good, right? 2 debuffs that you want on the boss. And then disturb the target's HP recovery by for 2 turns. So again, another really strong debuff for raid. So DS is another great option. And then I would say another Death Knight that you could use, that I actually used in the beginning as well, would be Brienne, the Wind Death Knight. The reason why he's good, he pretty much does the same thing with doing the attack break, and then also the HP recovery, disturbing the HP recovery, and then he also has, he'll even out the HP of your entire team. It's kind of like a heal, I guess, if one of your team members is like really struggling, and then providing a heal, but then he could also revive a dead ally. So if like your damage dealer dies, or maybe somebody on the front line dies, he's able to revive them, and then he'll balance out the HP, so then they risk not dying again. And then he also just has really tanky stats for a Nat 4. You'll put him in there on the front line, they'll just be able to get punched in the face and take all that damage. But then another important thing is that he provides a resistance lead. That 30% resistance just goes a long way. So that's why they kind of have like an early baseline of do 70% resistance, build 70% resistance on your units, and then have Brienne or somebody with a 30% resistance lead, or like we said, Chasarion earlier with a 41% resistance lead. Yeah, putting those as a leader skill to assist the rest of the raid. Yeah, so we have Brienne, Diaz, Darien, and Zhang Fei, with the majority of those being free to play, except for Diaz, if you weren't playing during the time when Diaz came out for the Hall of Heroes, or if you haven't summoned them yet. And there's plenty of other tanks that you can use, but they're more like Nat 5 based. Those were just kind of like the free to play ones that I would suggest. But other Nat 5 options that you could take, if you want to, you could take in Bastet. Bastet provides that 33% defense lead, just like Zhang Fei does. She does an insane amount of debuffs with her skill 3, which is decreased defense, landing the glancing hit, and then the disturb HP recovery, and then providing that attack break with skill 1. And then she does provide this shield, and the attack buff was skill 3, but then you also just have to take into account that that will get stripped by the boss, and then will heal the boss if you don't have disturbed HP recovery. But yeah, she has really good base stats, and easy to rune, and you can just put her right on the front line. She doesn't need to be crazy fast, because she's just going to be in there just to be a support unit, so don't worry about having a ton of speed. Make sure that you have the 1,500 defense, and then around like 23, 24,000, 25,000 HP total, okay? And then having that resistance up there to about 70%. So she's one option that you can do if you're looking for like Nat 5s to throw in there. Praha is another good one. I would consider her more of a healer than a frontline tank, but you can use her because she does provide that 41% resistance lead. She will use her skill 3 if one of your allies is getting low, but besides that, she doesn't really provide a whole lot of extra utility besides just providing a heal and then that resistance lead. So you can use her, but if she's not skilled up or runed well, like with runed well meaning like if she isn't fast, then yeah, her getting her heal rotation up isn't going to be that useful. And she just doesn't really provide anything else for the raid. She doesn't provide any debuffs or anything like that, just a leader skill and the heal. But it is an option. Okay, so we'll keep on scrolling through here. Some more of these are actually damage dealers, but we'll go that once we talk about damage dealers. So let's go into fire units. If you want to use some fire units, you could use, let's see here, Chasarion, we already went into there. I wouldn't use him as a tank though. But Fire Monkey King, there we go. He's another good one. Immune against inability effects, so when the boss stuns, Mei Hao Wang cannot get stunned unless he's in the Oblivion state. So that can happen, and then this actually doesn't go into effect, right? Because it's a passive. But yeah, increases his attack power and attack speed, so the longer the raid goes, the more damage he's going to deal. He provides that defense break with his skill 2, and then he has that, more importantly, the 33% defense lead. So that is a possible tank for you. Let's keep on scrolling through here. I'm not really seeing any other options that are really fantastic for raid. Yeah, we have some cleansers in here, we have some healers, but nothing that I would really probably put on the front line. You can make an argument to put Rukuni on there because he does do like a natural cleanse with the skill 2, but he doesn't provide anything else that's really necessary. Yeah, something like Ramahan, you could put him on the front line because you're going to naturally give him a bunch of defense. But again, yeah, it doesn't provide like the utility that you're looking for, right? He's only providing like just a defense break. So you might have like a tanky unit out front, but it's probably not going to be really great. Yeah, Fengyan, you could put him in there. He does cleanse himself and then provides HP recovery for the team, but that's pretty much all he does. I would rather you build like Zhang Fei, the Fire Panda from the fusion, instead of trying to use a Fengyan. But you can use it, and you could use him on the front line. Yeah, you could just use just whatever you want to use. So Xingzhe, another one that you could do as a tank, but he only provides the defense break on skill 2, and then he does have the HP lead, but I would say the defense lead is way more important than having an HP lead. The defense lead, you want the rest of your team to have that defense, especially your front line. All right, Jimeir. So I know we're going through tanks right now. Jimeir could be utilized as a tank for the front line because he has really good base stats, and then he's going to be in there for the attack break off of his skill 2. But again, this damage inflicted according to the enemy's max HP is not going to come into effect. So he's not going to deal crazy damage like he does in TOA. Okay. Yeah, but it'll decrease the attack power and the attack speed of the boss. And then besides that, he'll be able to cleanse your team and reset their skills. Speed leads aren't really important in raid, so don't do a speed lead. But you could use them in there as a cleanser, and then doing that, and he'll be like a frontline tank if you want him to be, and then providing that attack break. Let's see here. You could also go Skogl. I've seen some people use Skogl on the front line because he takes less damage when after he uses his skill 2, which I can't really say that he does do it with like good AI. Like he'll do it and then won't do it, but you're going to naturally build him like really tanky. So the damage that he deals is based on his max HP, and then all of that damage goes straight to the boss, and you're only fighting one of the heads, so it doesn't get separated into 3 separate damages. If you know the way Skogl works, he throws his Atlas Stone in the air, it falls on the enemy. Based on how many enemies there are, it'll split that damage based on those amount of enemies, so it'll divide it up 3 times if there's 3 enemies on the field. But since a raid boss will only count as 1 enemy, then all that damage excuse me, just goes straight to the boss. And then, he also provides that defense skill too, so you can use the Skogl for your front line if you just want to be creative and fun, but also just another opportunity for you to build like a solo R5 team. You could like mix and match all of these tanky units and put them into your different teams in order to build like your solo team, right? So that's kind of the purpose of going through all these units, so then you could try to formulate what type of team comps you want to build if you're looking to solo R5. Alright, and then for light and dark units, I probably won't go really into them. We looked at Darien, but the rest of them, a lot of people probably don't have a majority of like light and dark units, so we just won't go into them, okay? Alright, so that's going to be your tanks. So, highly recommend just getting Darien, Zhang Fei, and then if you happen to have some Nat 5s, then you could utilize those, right? If you're trying to build 3 separate teams, then you could use a Skogl on one of them. If you happen to have Skogl, use Darien on the next one. You could use Brienne instead of Skogl on one of them. And then you could use Zhang Fei, Darien, and Brienne or Skogl. Yeah, those are Nat 4s, so you might not have them on your account. So just utilize what you got. All right, next we're gonna have damage dealers. So damage dealers, you can pretty much just do anything that deals damage, right? Doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it deals damage, but it does, I would say, prioritize the ones that give your team utility. That's probably like the most important thing you can do by building your team. If you just have a bunch of random units in there, just like slapping the boss, and not really providing anything for the team, then whether it's like a leader skill or some type of debuff or some use of utility, then there's just better choices out there, and it makes your run easier when you have that utility. Don't make the game hard on yourself, right? Yeah, I did a video in the past on just like the basic R5 team, which is like Darien. Their two damage dealers are like Hua and the water Kung Fu girl, Hua being the fire Rakshasa. And then yeah, the water Kung Fu girl, and then your cleansers are like Konomiya, and which is the water Garuda, and Lisa, which is like the fire Neostone agent, and then your healer is like Chasarion, which is the wind Sky Dancer, and Colleen is your other healer, which is the fire, I think, Harpu, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't know, got a little off tangent there, but yes, right now we're going to go through some damage dealers. So what you see on the screen, I don't really recommend any of these being damage dealers. The majority of Nat 5s, I don't recommend as damage dealers. They're just utilize other places that don't need to be in R5. You want something that provides a defense break, maybe attack bar pushback, attack speed slow, and disturb HP recovery. Some people use the twins. I don't know if they took it away where the twins actually attack together. I don't know if they attack together on the raids anymore. I think their AI was changed for that. But if you do bring the twins into raid, I would recommend either the water ones or the wind ones. The water ones are going to take 20% less damage, and then, or deal 20% more damage, right? So the raid boss won't have beneficial effects granted on them, but they'll be able to deal 20% more damage because they won't have beneficial effects. And yeah, and then you could also use the wind ones as well, which deal more damage based on how many harmful effects are on the boss. All right, another good like pseudo damage dealer plus healer will be Miang. You could use her as a damage dealer in R5, but she also cleanses and then also recovers HP, so she's kind of just like the jack of all trades. So she'll provide the glancing hit on skill 1, she'll deal big damage with skill 2, and then she'll recover HP, cleanse, and yeah, for that skill 3. The leader skill doesn't really matter, but yeah, you could use her in pretty much any slot. I'd prefer a better cleanser because she only reduces the time of the harmful effects by 1 turn. So for like that Oblivion state that's 2 turns, she's only going to decrease it by just 1 of those turns. So not the best cleanser, but pretty decent healer. She has a pretty big heal based off of her attack, and then she deals decent damage off of skill 2. Alright, let's go for other damage dealers. Oh, here you go, the water Kung Fu girl. So Shaolin, very good at being a damage dealer for R5. You don't really have to worry about the leader skill, but yeah, this skill on for her skill 3, damage inflicted increases based on the amount of harmful effects on the enemy. So really good for R5 because you're going to keep on punching harmful effects into the boss pretty much the entire fight. So this is going to be great, and then if the skill's on cooldown, then you have a 25% chance to counterattack when attacked. So when the boss does a rageful roar and jumping into the sky and doing that, like all that stuff, she'll have a 25% chance to counterattack. And when she uses her skill 2, decrease the attack bar of the boss, and then decreases attack speed. Really useful to just shorten the amount of turns that the boss takes, and then has a chance to use skill 1 when this is on cooldown. I think. Okay, so never mind. Yeah, so if the skill is on, so if skill 3 is on cooldown, then it just has a chance to counterattack, right? Which will use skill 1, which has a chance to defense break. So you can defense break, attack speed slow, and just deal big damage based on the harmful effects. So that's where she comes into play. She doesn't provide a leader skill, but you're going to ruin her on Vampire, preferably on Vampire, but you could do a fatal set, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever like your best damage dealing set is. I shouldn't say best damage dealing, but a useful damage dealing set on her. And then you'll want to get her resistance up there, but overall just deal some decent damage. As for like the other water units, probably not great in damage. Next, we will look at, yeah, don't do Spectra. You could use Ryok if you wanted to for like the defense break. He does have kind of low base stats altogether, so he might be a little bit more difficult to rune, and you probably already have him built for a specific way for other dungeon content. But since he does team up with other allies to deal a bit extra damage, you could use this, and then he provides that defense break. He has a possibility of dealing good damage, but again, not a recommended unit because he doesn't provide anything besides maybe just a little bit of damage. Like I said, utility is important. Yeah, so Ken is one of the monsters that I actually do currently use as one of my damage dealers, and I really like it because he has a chance to leave a branding effect on the boss. So branding effect is just awesome when it comes to a raid, so then you just deal a ton more damage to the boss, right? And then this damage is increased by 15% per harmful effect, and then you instantly gain another turn if all attacks land as a critical hit. So you're just going to rune him on high crit, and hopefully you take an additional turn, so you're just dealing that extra damage to the boss. The skill 2, removing a beneficial effect, doesn't matter, but he does do attack bar pushback, and then skill 1 reduces the attack power for 2 turns, so decrease the attack. Probably one of two of the most important debuffs to have on the R5 boss, which is the attack power break and the the attack power break and disturb HP recovery. Those are probably like the 2 most important debuffs to have on the raid boss. I would say defense break would be number 3. Then you could just go down the list from there. But those are definitely the top 3. All right, so we're just gonna keep on scrolling through if we can. All right, Chasarion. Like I said before, Chasarion is a really good, brings a lot of utility because of that resistance lead and then that defense break with skill 2. Besides that, he doesn't really provide anything else, but you can rune him on damage and be a good damage dealer for raid while also providing that leader skill for the rest of your team. And it's 41% instead of like 30 or 33%, so it lessens the rune quality that you need to get into raid. Yeah, so 41% means that you'll only have to have like 59% resistance to get maxed out at 100%. And yeah, resistance leads again are important, so then you don't get stunned or oblivion by the boss. I wouldn't recommend any of these other units as damage dealers because again, they don't provide that utility that we keep on talking about. Fire Twins, I would not bring them in to raid for the purpose of being that their main use is being able to defense break and stun, and you have so many other units that are going to provide defense break that just makes them, you know, kind of like second class. And then yeah, you can't stun their R5 boss, so their utility, the Fire Twins utility, is pretty much useless. All right. Yeah, let's keep on going through. Here we go. Hua. Fantastic unit. I've had her since the beginning. Probably like one of my most favorite units in the game. And yeah, has a chance to decrease the attack bar of the enemy. Has a possibility to strike 2 times instead of just 1. She provides that crit rate, that 19% crit rate, which is just a really important for raid. You want your units to crit so you deal the maximum amount of damage as possible. And the main three leader skills that you're going to have are the defense percent, resistance, and crit rate. So Hua being able to be a damage dealer, provide that crit rate leader skill, and then also provide the attack speed slow with their skill 1, and being able to hit, you know, on multiple times. So you want to rune her just fast, decent damage, and then you also want to make sure that your units have enough HP to survive, you know, some of that damage. The resistance isn't that important on damage dealers. They're most likely going to get stunned and stuff like that, but that's why you bring cleansers in, right? So Hua is definitely probably my number 1 suggested damage dealer. Like Hua and Chasarion, I would suggest both of those, mainly just because of their leader skills. And then Shaolin, the Water Kung Fu Girl, also another solid pick. You're most likely going to start with 1, maybe 2 damage dealers on your team. And I would say Hua and Shaolin were my top 2 that I used back in the day. Alright, we'll keep on scrolling through. I don't really see any other damage dealers that I would recommend. Yeah, so now we'll go down to wind units. For wind units, none of these guys I really see as being a decent damage dealer. You can make an argument for like the Wind Monkey, Jingjae. Yeah, but the rest of these guys, you're not going to be able, like, bombs won't really take effect on R5. You don't need anything like Sierra. Lagmaron, I guess you could make an argument for Lagmaron. Because I think he does the attack break. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of experience with them, so I can't really say yes or no on this. But yeah, it's a possibility, I guess, if you could try it out and let me know how it goes. There used to be builds where like Katarina was popular back in the day, and I think they called it like the KB5 or I don't know, something like that. I forget what type of team it was. It was the Water Horus, the Keba Hesenuf, and then yeah, Katarina. But that's pretty much like, yeah, we don't need to talk about that. It was just a team back in the day that people used. Yeah, like I said, the Wind Twins are really good because they deal damage based on the amount of harmful effects on the R5 boss. Well, not specifically just R5 boss, but yeah, amount of harmful effects on the enemy. And yeah, when you deal more damage based off of that, they cleanse themselves and give themselves an attack power buff. So just really good for just dealing damage, right? So you could use the Wind Twins if you wanted to. You could use, I guess, Yen. She has the possibility of giving her a chance an extra turn, but doing the continuous damage effects on the boss doesn't really matter. But you do have a chance for the attack speed slow, and then absorbing the attack bar. So she can be used as a damage dealer if you want to use her. But again, I recommend Hua because Yen provides an attack power leader skill instead of the crit rate, and the crit rate is more important than the attack buff or the attack power. Other users for damage, Skogl, even though he's a tank, he could be considered a damage dealer as well. And then if we want to go into light units, yeah, I wouldn't recommend bringing Lucian, Sigmaris, any of the kind of like those standard damage dealers in the beginning, like Spectra. Yeah, none of those are going to be useful in R5. They're just going to die way too quickly. They don't have really good base stats, and yeah, they have other uses in the game, not being R5. Yeah, for light units, don't really know what type of light unit would be good for R5. I wouldn't recommend a whole lot of these. If you happen to have a Marna that's like a reviver healer and provides a bunch of like debuffs, but not many people have it, so we're not going to suggest it. Yeah, stuff like Lauren, you can use, providing that defense break and the attack speed slow and HP recovery on her skills. Depending how you have her built, you can use Lauren as more of like a utility unit, but she's not going to be like a damage dealer, so she doesn't really have a place in there because you already have other units that are providing this utility. You can have like the Zhang Fei, the Darien, and like Colleen, your healer. You're going to have Hua providing attack speed slow, and Shaolin, which is providing like the defense break. And yeah, so it's hard to find something like Lauren to like really shine. You can use it if you're just looking for just like a baseline unit to use if you don't have another unit built, but I wouldn't recommend it just because other units provide utility the same as Lauren. It's another possible damage dealer. So Crow is something that you could use, right? Providing the branding effect deals huge damage, and then because it's not based off of the enemy's max HP, it's just based off of each harmful effect on the enemy. So you're gonna, like again, I said, you're gonna be stacking harmful effects on the enemy, so you're gonna be able to use Crow and just deal a ton amount of damage. But you do have to make sure that he survives. So building him tanky can be an issue, and then yeah, does the team up kind of like how Ryok does, and then he provides that defense break on skill 1. So Crow can be a good option, and a lot of people do build it because it is a free-to-play unit. So you can do that if you want to use that. Other damage dealers, I would say that's pretty much the majority of damage dealers that I would pick, with priority being Hua and Shaolin. So, and again, I'll just say that this is just for like starter teams. This is not for more advanced teams and more advanced units, right? This is just to get you into the door of R5, and these are all options that you could pick, like I said, for like the main defense units or like the tanks, like the Darien, Diaz, and Brienne. You could have one of those on each team, and then for your damage dealers, you could split them up, right? So you could have Chasarion and whoever on one team, then you could have Hua and Shaolin on one team, and then your other team could have two other damage dealers. It could be like Ryok and Crow, you know, however you want to split it up. So then you could provide that solo R5, so then you don't have to rely on other people in order to do R5. Yeah, so you could just go through this list and go through what damage dealers that you have. You could build the ones that you don't have, and then now you could build your solo R5 team. All right, so now we're going to go back to the top, and then we're going to go through healers. Healers are obviously going to be really important because you want to keep your team alive. So we'll mix healers in. We'll go through healers and cleansers as we're going down, so then we don't have to go through the list all over again, because there are going to be some cleansers that are going to be healers as well, and vice versa, some healers that are going to be cleansers. All right, so Lulu, going to be right up the top. So she removes the harmful effects and does a big HP recovery on everybody. And then, yeah, same thing with skill 2. She'll cleanse one unit if it happens to be low, cleanse them and heal them. And then every time she takes a turn, then she does a 15% HP recovery on whoever has the lowest HP. So just really good unit. You can put it on high resistance, and then since you don't need crit rate or crit damage on your healers or cleansers, it's a lot easier to get that HP, defense, speed, and resistance on your runes instead of having to worry about attack, crit rate, and crit damage. I recommend putting your healers and cleansers on the back line for the most part. Some of them you might be able to get away with putting on the front line because they do have decent base stats, like Lulu. She has the HP and defense that are pretty high, so you could get away with putting them on the front line. But typically, I wouldn't put them on the front line because you don't want to risk them dying. And if they die, then the rest of your team dies because nobody's there to keep them alive, right? In the majority of cleansers and healers, you want them to be around plus 100 speed. I would say if they're on violent, you can get away with being around like plus 90 speed, but you want to be around like 190 speed on violent. If they're on swift, then you want to be around plus 110. You want to be close to like the 210 mark for your speed. That's so then they can rotate their skills, and then also if they're stunned, being able to take a turn after they're stunned to be able to cleanse and heal your team, because that can become an issue if you can't keep up with the amount of turns that the raid boss is taking. All right, so plus 90 speed on violent, plus 110 speed or higher on swift. Yeah, so Lulu's going to be a great choice. That's free to play. You could use that, right? Let's go through these other healers and cleansers. Bulwark is not going to be important. You're not going to use him. Abellio, you can make an argument to use Abellio, but if he gets put into Oblivion state and then his passive won't go off, then he won't be able to provide that heal. And then if he also goes into Druid form too early, then he's not going to have like his HP recovery available. So Abellio probably not the best choice, and then also just doesn't provide anything towards the team besides just being a healer. Ariel, if you do have them, could be a great choice. Leader skill, not that important, but yeah, being able to remove all harmful effects, provide that cleanse, increase their attack bar, provide the HP recovery based on all of the harmful effects on your team, doing a big heal on skill 2. So just being in there just to be a cleanser and healer, so you can use that. Some people do bring Amelia just to provide that constant cleanse, but if she doesn't have like a really intelligent AI, but she should cleanse when she has it, when your team does have debuffs on there. But yeah, some people use it, some people don't. Like I said, that'll be just your choice for a cleanser. I would highly recommend do not bring in units like Wusa, things with shield and will, and that's all they provide. It's not going to be great, not going to be useful. Or I should say not going to be as useful as bringing an actual cleanser or an actual healer into the raid. Next we have Annabelle. If you happen to have Annabelle, you can use her. Make sure that she's skilled up, and then she can provide that cleanse and the recovery off of skill 2. I don't know if she has smart AI or not, if she'll prioritize using this skill only when your team is low on HP, or if they have debuffs. I don't know if she'll prioritize that. But she used to be a pretty big cleanser back in the day that people use, so you can use her. Easier to rune because she has good base stats, and then she also awakens into resistance. And as we've been saying throughout the video, resistance is important in order to negate all those debuffs from the boss, or to try to resist them, not really negate them. And we said in the beginning, Praha providing that leader skill, the resistance lead, and doing that HP recovery on her skill 3. Besides that, she doesn't really do much else. So there's other units that you can use, but if you just want to, these, like I said, I'm just giving a wide spectrum of healers, cleansers, and damage dealers and tanks that you can use in order to build your 3 teams and being able to do solo R5. Because I think that should be like the main goal for a lot of people when it comes to raiding, is trying to raid solo. Because, or at least in my opinion, I think that's what people should go for, because I don't want to have to sit there and like look for raid members all day, and then like they'll do 2 or 3 runs and then they'll just leave. So solo R5, you could just start it, set your phone down, do whatever it is that you need to do, come back to it, and then just refresh on your own time, not have to worry about wasting other people's time or them wasting your time. Alright, so we'll just keep on going through here. Other cleanser, I guess, like we said, Miang is pretty solid doing the cleanse, but it's only for 1 turn. So if you're debuffed for 2 turns, that it's only going to clear 1 of them. But it is a pretty big heal, and she deals a decent amount of damage as well. Emma, she does a heal, but she doesn't really do a cleanse. She does only a single target cleanse. So I wouldn't recommend bringing Emma into there. Water Mermaid, it's based off of her passive, so I wouldn't use it because she can be oblivioned, and it just reduces the time of harmful effect. So she has to take a turn, and then it'll reduce the harmful effect by 1 turn. But it's kind of like Miang, but just not as great. So I wouldn't recommend the Water Mermaid. Let's keep on going through here. So Konomiya, like a perfect starter unit that's free to play. Does the big heal on skill 3, removes the harmful effects on all allies, so perfect cleanser. She'll give somebody a turn, provide that attack buff. The skill 1, not that important, with the chance to stun, but it's just like, she was a really big free to play unit back in the day that a lot of people use for R5 because that was like a primary cleanser for your team. Really good HP on her. Removing the harmful effects and then also providing that heal. So a lot of people would put this on their teams, and highly recommended, especially because it's free to play, easy to use, easy to build. You still want that 70% resistance and then good defense, good HP, but most likely you're going to put Konomiya on the back line because trying to get 1500 HP on here, defense on here, is going to be pretty hard. Alright, keep on going down. See, other healers and cleansers. I might miss a few of these just because I'm kind of scrolling through kind of fast. But if you happen to see others, then you could just post it in the comments just to help out other people. Another cleanser, you could do Velajul, but I wouldn't really do it. He does provide the defense break now in a skill 2, which is nice. And then he does do the cleanse with his skill 3. But, he does have the tankiness too, so I guess you can make an argument that this, if you have him, then you could use him as a cleanser. I would accept it. Yeah, providing that defense break is nice. His leader skill is pretty useless when it comes to R5, but yeah, providing that cleanse on skill 3, I think is really helpful. So if you wanted to put this as a cleanser on one of your team, I wouldn't have a problem with that. All right, other cleansers. The things that I was scrolling past, I'm not going to discuss why I say yes or no to them. Another damage dealer, if you happen to have it. I guess I did pass one of them. Brandia, good damage dealer. Damage based on how many harmful effects are on the enemy. She does a lot of harmful effects on her skill 2. Also the defense break on skill 1. And then the skill 3, dealing damage based on how many harmful effects are on them. And then if the target cannot be put to sleep, then she'll deal 50% more damage. And the R5 boss cannot be put to sleep, so she'll deal just a ton of damage. So if you do have it, you could rune it up and use it. Kind of like Crow, but just like Crow on steroids. Alright, let's see here. Other cleansers. So my priority cleanser that I really recommend to people is actually Lisa. She's a really fun unit to use. You'll see some people actually using it in RTA as well, because her skill 3, remove all harmful effects, so that's your cleanse, and then 3 random enemies attack the enemy target. So you could have like Hua and Shaolin attack, and if they happen to team up with Lisa, so then you get that attack speed slow, decrease attack bar, and then the defense break with like Shaolin and Hua. But regardless, just removing all harmful effects is just really useful. And then skill 2, yeah, doesn't matter because yeah, the boss isn't going to have any beneficial effects on them. But she does have a chance of putting the glancing hit on the boss. Glancing hit really helps your team by just staying alive, right? That chance for glancing is, yeah, you're just not taking a direct hit to the face. It's just a weakened hit to the face. So really helpful. So if you happen to have Lisa, I would recommend this as one of your cleansers. I used Lisa and Konomiya in my beginning R5 team back in the day. And yeah, I think she's just a great unit to have. And you'll probably see me using it in my R5 team that I'm going to showcase at the end of this video. Alright, other cleansers, don't recommend Rakuni or Chloe. I don't really think Chloe's a big cleanser either. Do we have any wind cleansers? Not seeing anything specifically. Like Feng Yan will cleanse himself, but yeah, that doesn't really matter. That doesn't help out your team. You could use Ariel as a healer. You shouldn't be focused on your team dying. So I mean, Eladriel. I think I said Ariel. But yeah, Eladriel is not going to be great. It just depends. Like if your team dies, then he'll be helpful then. But yeah, wouldn't recommend him. Jimeir, good cleanser. I think we just went over him before. We had being able to cleanse on the skill 3, and then also resetting everybody's cooldowns. Really helpful for the team. Also provides that attack break and the attack speed. So not too bad. You could use Jimeir if you happen to have him. Decent cleanser. The only thing that makes it kind of rough is that his cleanse is on a pretty long cooldown. 5 turns is quite a lot. And then he'll prioritize using this after your allies use their skills. So even if they don't have harmful effects on them, he might use this. So it could actually damage your team. I mean, it resets their cooldowns, but it doesn't cleanse them when the debuffs actually happen. So you have to look out for that. Another good healer, I would say a great healer. Oh, and I know one healer that we actually missed as well, now that I'm looking at Chasun. So Chasun will heal even if your ally has recovery, disturb HP recovery on them. Fallen Blossom actually goes through that, and because it balances out, it equates your HP to whoever that is. So if Chasun is dying and then another unit has like max HP, then she'll use this and then get her HP all the way back up to max. She has a big heal on skill 2, and then also gives the attack buff to all of your units, which is really awesome, especially for your damage dealers. And then her skill 1 has a chance to do the glancing hit on the enemy. Overall, good defensive stats, good HP, so you could possibly use this on the front line as long as you can get up to that 1,500 defense, and then good resistance, and then all around just a pretty solid healer. And then it's also a 3-turn cooldown for her recovery skill, so yeah, her being able to cycle her turns, really good. Excuse me. And being able to get that heal back up. Alright, so we're going to go back to the one that I know I missed, which is Colleen. Colleen is another fantastic healer if you're first getting into R5, providing that recovery and the attack buff on skill 3. And again, it's only a 3-turn cooldown. But this is another reason why Colleen is fantastic for raid, because she provides that utility of doing the disturbing the HP recovery on the boss, which I said is one of the top 2 debuffs, and then providing that attack break, which is also part of that top 2 debuffs for the boss. So she has really low base stats, so you're most likely going to put her in the back line, but being able to provide the heals, do disturb HP recovery, and the attack break, almost like perfectly built for raid, right? The only problem I have with Colleen and Chasun is that they prioritize their heals first because they want to give your team attack buff. So they're going to utilize their heals even when your team doesn't need it. So when your team does need it, they might not have it up, and then your team could die. So if you see failed runs when you have those as your healers, it is a possibility that that's what's happening. Other healers, you can use Belladion because Belladion actually does have smart heals. Smart heals meaning that Belladion will prioritize skill 3 and use it when I think an HP of an ally goes below like 70% or 60%, something like that. But yeah, only uses it when needed, which is really nice. Doesn't really provide anything else towards the raid though, besides a defense break. So Belladion's not like the first choice of a healer, but is an option if you want to put it on one of your 3 teams for your solo R5, right? Shren you can use as like a pseudo healer damage dealer, big damage on skill 2. If you happen to have this built, and then yeah, evens the HP ratio out of like you and an ally, whoever has the lowest amount of HP. So not like a recommended thing to use, but you can, I guess, if you want to. Who's another good healer here? Amarna, if you happen to have it. I probably won't go through healers that are LD units, because some people just might not have them, or the majority of people might not have them. Yeah, you could use Molly, but Molly has to take a turn in order to heal, and her heal is based on her passive. She can get Oblivion and not heal at all, so wouldn't recommend it. Fran you could put on one of your teams. I prefer Chasarion or Colleen over Fran, but yeah, she'll provide the attack buff and immunity, and then do her heal on skill 2. So you can use her, but again, I would prefer like Colleen, because Colleen provides the Disturb HP recovery and the attack break. But Fran does the attack break off of skill 1, so you can make an argument that she's pretty decent. Your choice. Just another healing option for your team. And then, let's see, are there any dark units that you could use as a healer? Beta, I guess, if you have it. But no, that'll be like the majority of that. Cool, so now we're gonna go into my actual solo R5 team. And we will just see how it works. So I have Kali as a damage dealer, providing that attack buff. Rayok as a damage dealer. I do have the twins in there. I didn't talk about Hikaru being on the front line, but since you naturally put him on a lot of defense, I just kind of threw him in there just to take a lot of that damage. And then I have Lulu as my healer over here on this team. I have my healer and cleanser over here, which is going to be Fran and Lisa. They're on the front line with Darian. And then I'm trying to put the branding effect with this team. So I have Crow and Ken here. Ken is the Fire Shadow Claw that you could buy with your, what are those coins called? Like ancient coins or something like that. I think they're ancient coins. But as you see here, I have the crit rate. This is more like an advanced solo team, solo R5, because I need the crit rate for the BJ5 team. And if you're wondering what BJ5 is, that's this team over here. Balaguer Jansen is what the BJ stands for. Yeah, so you can look up other videos online for the BJ5 team and to see how like the team syncs together. If all 3 players have this BJ5 team, then the raid only takes like 27 seconds. Between 27 and like 31 seconds based on how much damage that you deal. But yeah, so I have the BJ5 team over here. I'll have like my kind of like tanky team in the middle, because the BJ5 team will die. And this team will just be there to take the damage in the face until these 2 teams finally take out the boss. But yeah, I would say 4 damage dealers, a little bit more advanced. I would recommend having your tanks. And so the standard build is going to be 1 tank, 2 cleansers, 2 healers, and then 1 damage dealer. Once you're able to withstand a lot of the damage from the boss, your runes get a little bit better. You're putting the grinds on your runes. Then you could take out probably 1 healer and then put in a 2nd damage dealer. So you'll have 1 tank, 2 cleansers, 2 damage dealers, and 1 healer. Or you could do 1 tank, 1 cleanser, 2 healers, and 2 damage dealers. You could, but yeah, eventually you'll have like 2 damage dealers in there. But yeah, let's just get into it. So we'll just see how this team actually works, and if you want to build a team like this for your solo R5, I do free optimizations for people's accounts, and if your rune quality is up there, I would be able to build you like a team like this. So yeah, we're getting that branding effect up there. You'll see the team over here, the BJ5 team. Once Balaguer goes, you'll just see that the health bar go way down. And yeah, the other teams are in there just for that other like splash damage, I call it. Just that extra damage. Yeah, we want Crow and Ken here to provide that branding effect. But as you see, like the debuffs up here, these are really important to have. The glancing hit is nice, but the attack break and the heal block, which is really beneficial for the R5 boss, because if he ever does take a turn and then he removes all the buffs on the allies, stuns them, and then he'll also heal off of those as well. Yeah, so it just makes it that much more difficult. So that's why I'd recommend units that actually have those type of builds to them, you know, that type of utility. But yeah, so hopefully this video was helpful, and maybe you learned something from it, maybe you didn't, maybe you watched it just because you're supporting me, you know, whatever the choice may be. But yeah, again, I appreciate your viewership, and then if you have any questions on R5, or like what type of units to use, then put that in the comments below, you know, and I'll try to answer your questions to the best that I can, or you can catch me on stream live, or just request an optimization too, and I'll log into your account, move some runes around, and actually build your R5 team for you. I've built this specific team on screen for some people, and it works well for them. I could also build you just like a solo, just a one team, and then you could bring that into R5 and just do R5 with your friends. You know, however it is that you want to do it. But this will probably be the end of the video. And oh, that's weird. Look at that. I got +0 mana. That's a funny glitch in the game. But yeah, let me know what units you guys use, and just share that information, share that knowledge with the rest of the community on what you use and how R5 works for you. This is just my take on it, and I'm sure there's many takes on it. So hopefully you guys have a good day, and I will see you guys in the next video. All right, see ya.